Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Let's just dive right into what makes this podcast possible. That's right. Black Rifle Coffee does. Let's head over to the website right now, see what they have to offer. Before this, obviously, was very 4th of July centric. Looks like we're right back on the coffee subscription club. You can get 20% off when you start a coffee subscription using the code COFFEE20. So obviously it's not going to apply to people with existing subscriptions. People may ask, well, what is that? It's whatever type of coffee, ground or whole bean, delivered wherever you want on the frequency that you want it to be delivered. Kind of a coffee lover's dream. Below, if you don't know what Black Rifle Coffee has to offer, there's a sliding or a bar, a slider, if you will. It goes to light and it goes to extra dark. And then we'll just put it back in the middle here. And that's what you get to choose from, and everything else: apparel, gear, coffee bundles, and the coffee sampler. You have the Black Rifle Coffee Instagram, the emailing list if you would want to join. And they are what makes this podcast possible. So for the coffee lover in your life, go to blackriflecoffee.com. Support an amazing brand founded by amazing people. My guest for today is Ian Bryson, and I don't know the best way to describe this man. We had a fascinating multi-hour conversation. He reached out to me. The subject line, I'm looking at it right now, his first email was the abduction of my daughter. Of course, that's going to get my attention. And let me read a sentence from it. My daughter was parentally abducted by a multi-generational cult family that practices ritual abuse and trauma-based mind control. I tried to get help for 4 months, and when I was unsuccessful, went to Poland to demand help. So this occurred overseas. His wife was from out of the United States. He went back over to Europe. Actually, I don't even know why I'm trying to describe this, because he does a pretty damn good job of explaining what happened. He also has a book. It's called I Love You Like One, and I will put the link to that book should you want to purchase it after listening to our episode. Let's get into this. Episode number 342 with Ian Bryson. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Ian, thank you for making the trip out. This is the single thickest book I think I've ever picked up. I don't even know if the Bible is this thick. I was telling Michael, why don't we just read from first page to last? We'll do the audiobook version right now. And I feel like that way we'll get through the entire story if we do it like that. Let me see. It's called I Love You Like One, a letter to my daughter abducted by a cult, which obviously leads to questions.
Yes, sir.
Where would you like to begin? Keep that microphone pretty close to your mouth, too. There you go. Where do you want to start? I know this story is obviously personal. It's about your family, and I want to make sure that you have the ability to kind of tell it at the breadth and depth that you want to, so you can get the message out that you're trying to.
So I think I should start just briefly with my childhood and growing up, and,
Okay.
and how I saw life and what was in front of me at the time.
Okay.
So I grew up in Oregon and Connecticut. We had a 650-acre ranch outside of Eugene.
A horse ranch? What are we talking?
Horse ranch.
Okay.
We did a little bit of hay. My dad had retired at about age 40, and it was just like a perfect heaven on earth. And my family life was pretty good. Like, I thought, everything was good. I was doing well in school. And then I went to college. I went to the University of Connecticut, and I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. I was just good in school, and I wanted to continue and just get more education, increase my skills in that area, I guess.
You enjoyed academia?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did my whole life. I think it was basically because I was good at it. And my mom encouraged it. I was good at it.
Anything in particular you liked about it? Because let me tell you, if I had to describe myself, I would just pick what you said and find the opposite words. I was not good at it. I did not enjoy it. I did not pursue it further.
I think prior to college, it was more like just a recognition that it was something I was good at in comparison to other kids.
Any particular subjects that stuck with you?
I liked writing.
Okay.
I liked research.
You liked writing? No shit.
I didn't like science.
If only there was something that documents your love of writing. It's all coming together for me now.
When I got to UConn, I was pre-med at first, and I failed out after my first year because I just partied. And then when I went back, I took courses that I was interested in. So I took a lot of sociology, psychology, philosophy, and criminal justice, and just still unsure of what I was going to do with it. I wasn't going to college for a job. It was just I'm gonna go this route and see where it takes me.
What year was this?
So I graduated high school in 1995.
Okay, so you're 1 year ahead of me. So you're 47?
Yes, I just turned 47.
Cool.
It took me 5 years to get my bachelor's degree, and then I decided I was going to continue to law school, but I was going to get my master's degree first. So I went, after getting my bachelor's degree in 2000, I went right back to school to get a master's in political science. And that's where I started to focus on constitutional law, human rights and liberties. And I really enjoyed researching and writing and just formulating opinions, studying Supreme Court justices and how they can basically write whatever they want and do it well. They're legal scholars, but they also have an agenda, so to speak. So they're able to formulate very clearly why they believe their position should be the position that we go with, and do so in a way that's persuasive. And I enjoyed learning from them and just picking their brains. So after I got my master's degree in 2003, I did a little traveling, went to Australia, came back, and was living at an apartment building that my dad owned. My brother was a drug dealer, and I was just hanging out with that crowd. Didn't know what I was going to do next. I still thought I would go to law school, and then I met my first wife, and a friend of mine invited me over to his apartment. Said, well, "There's some Polish people here I want you to meet." And as soon as I laid my eyes on her, I thought it was love at first sight. It was just like I knew she was going to be my wife, even though she was there with her boyfriend from Poland. So from there, I invited...
Was he aware of this plan at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, just checking.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I mean, and I felt bad. It's not the way that I think.
Did you, though?
A little bit. I try.
It's okay. It's
I tried to give him because my dad's apartment building was empty, so I tried to give him a key to another apartment that he could stay in, and respect him as much as I could. At the same time, I was taking his woman.
How did you? What would be the correct term? Woo said fair lady.
She wooed me. So I said, come live with me, and she did. And
That's a bold opener. Yeah. Many women would run presented with that right out of the gate.
I know, but I knew from the way that she looked at me and was treating me that she also felt the same way.
So she made the first move.
She made the first move, and then a couple weeks later, I took her to upstate New York, and she took a ring off of her finger, gave it to me, and said, "Ask me to marry me," and I did.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Have you ever heard the term cuckold?
Yes, I have.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying it applies. But damn, she was playing the guitar on this one. She was doing the guitar solo. You might have been the guitar. I don't know this woman at all. I'm not talking shit about her. I'm just saying she might have been wearing the pants, Ian.
She was wearing the pants.
Okay.
I had no idea where she came from. I had never met her family.
You didn't know where she was from?
Well,
I feel like she had a little bit of an accent.
Yeah, so I knew she was from Poland, but I had never been to Poland.
Of course.
I had never met anybody else in her circle other than the two people that she was with. One of them was her boyfriend.
Okay.
So
she told you to ask her to marry her. a portion of this story, which I will never forget. Tell me more.
So I did immediately, and
On the spot.
On the spot, and
God damn it!
I felt like I was I felt like I wanted to, but also like I had to.
At this moment, I wish I was a psychiatrist of some kind, because I feel like we're going into some like highly predatory waters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after that, she was over on a 3-month visa. At that point in time,
where in that 3-month visa did this occur? Towards the beginning or the end?
Towards the end, in
Okay.
the last month. So
I'm not the smartest man, but I am putting some of this together.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have much wisdom at that age, and I just thought it was love at first sight.
You might have been thinking with your smaller head, if you know what I mean.
That too, yes.
Which traditionally doesn't make the best long-term choices.
I know. Now I know.
Yeah.
So when her visa ran out, I returned to Poland with her so that we could apply for a fiancé visa. Mm-hmm. So I lived at my in-laws, my future in-laws at that point, in Poland while we were waiting for the visa. And that's where I noticed big problems in her family. Her dad was a raging alcoholic, but I chalked it up to just him being Polish.
I have been to a couple of those regions, and not that everybody in that area of the world drinks hard. The people that I interfaced with drank hard. Culturally, it certainly seemed to be ingrained.
Yes, it was. Like any kind of get-together, any man at the table will drink a liter of vodka. I
was being offered vodka at breakfast, which was a concept that I was not comfortable with.
No, it's too early.
I was still hungover from the vodka from the previous dinner.
We would go play basketball, and he would pull beers out of his backpack instead of water, and tell me that's what a Polish man does, and I didn't have anybody to compare to. I wanted water while I was playing basketball. I was willing to have a beer with him later, but
Okay, so you get over there. How much time did you spend with her before you went to Poland?
Roughly a month.
Any indications of anything being off before then? Not necessarily with her, but you know how sometimes you can just, in either listening or spending time with people, you can get shadows or hints of something that has happened to them, or maybe they're distant or avoidant of some things because of what has happened to them. Any hint of that whatsoever?
There were major hints.
Okay.
And in my journal, I wrote that I thought she had a trauma-related disorder. At the time, I thought it looked like borderline personality disorder, which is usually caused by early trauma. She had sexual dysfunction. She had no memories of her childhood. When I asked her about her childhood, she would say things like, "The nicest thing my dad ever did was bring me 1 cup of tea." And I would try to push her. I'd say, well, what else is there? What do you remember? And she would say things like, "Well, I remember I was never married before." And just weird,
no shit, you were a
weird
child.
things. Well, I met her when she was 22.
Okay.
So, but so it was very odd, but I could never get past those walls or that amnesia or whatever it was. I didn't know. So I just kept taking notes, but I had decided I was going to marry her. And once I made the decision, there wasn't anything that was going to change my mind.
What were you expecting on the flight over there? Did you have any idea what to expect? Did you have any expectations, preconceived notions, or just kind of a blank canvas and you were going to let them paint with it?
Yeah, so I always liked traveling. I was excited to go to a new country. I was excited to meet my future family. And I believed that we loved each other. So I was just excited to see her because she had gone over before me. So I was going over to meet her and meet my new family.
Okay. And then pick it back up with the indications that something was amiss.
So, yeah, when I got there, she was the only person I could speak to because none of the other people in her family spoke English, and nobody really on the streets either spoke English, or they do speak a little bit of English, but they're uncomfortable speaking it to foreigners because they sound like babies, basically.
Self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she would tell me, she would translate for me, and she would say things like, "My dad likes young boobies," or
Okay.
Right. Or her grandfather would ask how my fiance was in bed, things like that. And it's like, this is weird and, sounds perverted to me, but I couldn't get any more information than what she was telling me. So I just kind of brushed it off and thought, people are weird. I'm not going to jump to conclusions about it. But at that point also, I noticed other things where she would go from being on top of the world to in the depths of despair and just like in the snap of a fingers, and
high highs and low lows.
Really, really high highs, really low lows,
Okay.
and all I wanted was for the high to come back, because that was perfect. And when it was low, I was devastated. I started having panic attacks. And her mother got me a prescription for clonazepam while I was over there at a dose that they would never give in this country. So I started taking clonazepam. I started drinking a little bit when I was over there, just so that I could quell the high anxiety that I was experiencing. And I just wanted to get back to the United States and start our life. I still planned at that point to go to law school. And, I just was kind of just riding it out.
Was your thought that if you could get her back to the United States, a lot of these things would sort themselves? Get out of that environment and start anew?
Yes, I that's what I believed. And I believed that whatever had happened that had made her that way was in the past, and that now she was an adult. Now we were going to be married, and that those things wouldn't affect us, that they would stay in the past. So I had no understanding of trauma and the effects of incest and things like that. So I believed her too. So when she would tell me, "I love you," and we're going to do this and that, I believed her. I put all of my trust in her, and I didn't doubt her at all. I doubted her father a little bit, but even then it was just like, well, that's her father. I'm going to be her husband.
Yeah. I think I would have asked her grandfather back, "How's your wife in the sack?" Just give him the shit right back. Difficult given the language barrier, but, maybe she would have at least given it an attempt.
Yeah. If I met her in my 40s, I definitely would be on it now. But,
yeah,
I was just young and naive and had no idea that these things even existed.
How long were you in Poland? And I'm assuming you guys eventually came back, or no?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
So we were there probably around a couple months. And then we had to get like her paperwork for the fiance visa. She had to have medical exams, and so then we came back and we got married in Connecticut. And our plan was to stay in Connecticut as far as I knew.
Excuse me. What does the fiance visa allow you to do?
It allows
a bridge to citizenship, essentially.
So, well, it's a couple steps down the road.
Okay.
But it allows her to enter the United States as my fiance, and then you have a certain amount of time where you have to get married.
Okay, but it's an easier way to get somebody into the country for a little bit longer. Okay,
and it is abused by people. Like I was offered once at the gas station to go to India, I believe, and marry someone and bring them back, and they'll pay you to do that. But you can only do it once. So that's that. But of course, I was intending to marry her.
Yeah. Okay. So you came back, you got married. Big ceremony, small ceremony?
Small ceremony in my mom's backyard with a justice of the peace.
Awesome.
Her sister, my wife's sister and cousin flew over, and another person who was a cousin, or that she said he was a cousin, came up from New York City. And then my family and friends were there, but probably 50 people.
Okay.
And then we had a daughter that was born in 2007 in New London, Connecticut.
How long had you guys been married?
2 years.
Okay.
So
still mid-20s at this point then? 25-ish?
So my daughter was born when I was 30.
Okay.
And my wife is 5 years younger than me.
Okay.
So after our daughter was born in New London, Connecticut, then right around the time she was a year old, she really wanted to move to Europe. And she had this long list of reasons why we should move to Europe. The primary one was to be closer to her family in Poland, because her parents had time to help us. And
Did she want to move to Poland or just back into Europe proper, more proximal to Poland?
She never tried to convince me to move to Poland, and I think she probably knew that would be a tough sell.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't work in Poland. I didn't speak Polish at the time, and Polish money is worth $0.25.
Okay.
So she convinced me of the Netherlands,
Which is still across the pond. That's the big hurdle in that.
yeah, and people like my dad said, don't take your family over there, and he was right, because once I was in Europe, it was a totally different ball game.
Okay.
But I moved over there because my master's degree is in political science. I thought I could get a job in The Hague in one of the international criminal courts. At that time in 2008, the euro was worth double the dollar, and they speak English. So we moved over there. I just flew over with our suitcases and probably a couple $1,000s in my pocket with nowhere to go. Got off the airplane, had somebody drop me off at a hostel, and from there I found a place for us to live. And then my wife and daughter were in Poland, and they came over once I found a place for us to live.
Okay. How'd life treat you after that?
It was pretty good. I mean, there was a series of steps. So we lived in somebody's house from somewhere in the Middle East. He was a Muslim. We lived in his house for a little while. Then we moved to a better place in someone's house, and then we finally got our own place. I did fall off a bicycle and break my jaw the first year I was there, which that was tough. And dealing with the Dutch medical system is not like here. They sent me home with a broken jaw for a few days till the specialist was ready. But I ended up getting a job with an online university, and it wasn't my dream job, but I met other expats and was making decent money, and they give you a month paid vacation there as soon as you start. So
What?
yeah, and they pay you double. So
Welcome aboard. Take a month off.
everybody gets a month off.
Don't get any goddamn ideas, Michael.
So like I did enjoy life in Europe.
How did your wife enjoy it?
She was constantly going back and forth to Poland. And
With your daughter?
With my daughter.
How were the highs and lows? Was there any change to that once you guys got settled in Europe?
It kept going, and then I saw more cycles of this. So I started learning. Everything would be fine. I would send them to Poland, and then when they came back, everything was the opposite. And as my daughter got older, she started coming back with signs of child abuse and bruises and screaming about her pee-pee, and like when it's time to take a shower, like not my pee-pee, stuff like that, having nightmares and tantrums. And she walked into the bathroom once while I was going to the bathroom and said, "You look like Grandpa." Stuff like that was happening.
What was your wife's explanation for this behavior?
Total stonewall. She wouldn't talk to me. So with the not my pee-pee stuff, I would say, "We need to go see a doctor." And she would say, "Well, it's a soap irritation." And I would say, "Well, why does this soap irritation only happen after she returns from Poland? And it's every time she returns from Poland, and then it goes away." It's like, what kind of soap are they using over there, and why do they keep using it? And it didn't make sense, because it wasn't just pain. It was terror. It was.
Yeah. How old was she at this time?
She was 3 when I started noticing these things.
Holy shit. There's a special place in hell for, I'm not religious by any stretch of the imagination, common turn of the phrase, for people who would do that to a 3-year-old, and I would fucking pay every penny I have to be the person that sends them there. Mm-hmm. I have never been a fan of bullies, but people who prey upon children, I have nothing but time and creativity for ways to dispatch them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But I don't like prison. So I feel like I'm not getting the chance to be my true self, is what I'm saying. I'm not getting the chance to express myself the way I want to.
Well, they take care of those people in prison.
Yeah, but I don't, if I'm being honest, don't want to even let them get to prison. I feel like it's cheaper for the state to bury somebody once than house them 365.
Yeah, hurting children is not okay.
Who can do that?
And I couldn't even understand that it could be happening to my child.
Yeah.
First of all, it's my child, my home, and that's the last thing that I would ever allow. Over my dead body would be the phrase. But
did you ever go with her to Poland?
I did.
When she came back from those trips, was the behavior different than when she went with just her mom?
It would be the same. And when I'd go with her, she would say things like, "When I'm in Poland, I'm not with you. I'm my dad's when I'm here," and I would just hit the bottle. Like I couldn't take it. I didn't know what to make of this, and I just had such an anxiety that I was bedridden basically, and had no idea what was going on and why my wife was going out with her dad and I wasn't allowed to go or even know what they're doing. And then he would start taking my daughter out, and I was alone because without my wife, I was stuck. I couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever try to stop them from taking her?
Not at that point.
Okay.
I still trusted my wife.
Why?
I think it was just a decision I made. I mean, she was my wife, so she was my partner, and I was alone in Europe with her. I didn't have any friends over there. I wasn't really in contact with my family. I wasn't running things by anybody else, not in detail. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to work on this with her, and whatever it is, we'll figure it out. And if I keep loving her and doing what I'm supposed to do, then she'll come around.
Okay. That is a tough spot to be in. There is some naivete in that, though, as well.
Oh, yes.
Which you can say in the rearview mirror, right? Hindsight being 20/20, if not 20/10. I'm sorry that you were in that position. From an outsider hearing this story, I'm not going to guess yet as to where this goes, but I already have a suspicion as to what was going on here. Mm-hmm. So I'll let you continue.
So in 2010 is when I started like demanding that we get help, and we looked for a marriage counselor. Mostly because I wanted to get her into the office one way or the other, and
her as in your daughter, or
as my wife.
Okay,
my daughter. When like with the soap irritation thing, I would say let's go to the doctor, and she would say no, we're not going to the doctor. I know it's a soap irritation, and because it dropped off after a week or two of her returning to my home, I just dropped it and thought, well, whatever that was, it's gone now, and again, I was naive and I kept sending them back to Poland. So. Yeah. So we found a psychologist who was talking to both of us, and then I sent her to another psychologist alone, and she went there and said, my husband thinks I go crazy sometimes, and we thought it was borderline personality disorder, like I said, and so I have her questionnaires and stuff that she filled out in the book, but it was just like she was very impulsive, she had a very high fear of abandonment, and just the highs and the lows. Those things were just constantly happening. So around Easter 2010, my daughter went to Poland with my wife, and I went too, but I came back early, and my daughter had to stay because they said she has scarlet fever and she might die. So that was like where I started kind of freaking out about what's going on. Like, you're saying she might die, but as her father, I have no say. She has to stay in Poland.
Did she appear to be visibly ill?
I mean, she appeared to be traumatized to me, but not like I never saw any doctors, orders or a diagnosis or.
What is scarlet fever, Michael? This is the beauty of the internet. I've heard the term before, but if I'm being honest, I don't have a fucking clue what it is. Scarlet fever is a bacterial illness that develops in some people who have strep throat, also known as scarlatina. Scarlet fever is a bright red rash. Holy shit!
So I was never shown any pictures like that.
Well, you were there in Poland at the same time. You didn't have access to her?
I did, but then I got sent home or I had to go back to work.
Keep going down a little bit, Michael. That is a bad rash. Keep going down. Usually starts on the face and neck, later spreading to the chest, trunk, arms, and legs. Most common in children 5 to 15. How old was she at that point?
She was 3.
Okay. Serious childhood illness. Antibiotic treatment has made it less threatening. Still, if left untreated, scarlet fever can result in a more serious condition that affects heart, kidneys. Okay.
So they told me she had that and she might die. And my wife said that her parents said she had to stay in Poland. And my position was, if she might die, I want to bring her to a doctor in the Netherlands or the United States. I don't want her to be in Poland. But I was just told that no, that she has to be in Poland because my in-laws said so. And so like that was something I could barely take that, and I was ready to at that point step over my wife's toes and say no, you're not calling the shots on this. But again, I let it go. And she came back, and when my wife came back, she told me she hated me, and it was the down cycle, and the down cycle stayed for a long time, and I waited it out, and then my daughter came back, and my wife became healthy again, and I thought we were on top of the world. I thought my wife was the most happy woman I'd ever met. We were dancing together, like cooking together, reading together, just everything that, I think a healthy family should do. Or, I believe that we had scaled that mountain and that whatever that was behind us. Mm-hmm. So then summer 2010, we applied for my wife's visa because we left the United States to move to the Netherlands. She couldn't just go back, even though she was my wife.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we had to apply for a new visa.
Pretty straightforward, though, if you guys are married. Like, not a lot of things are going to hang you up.
It's straightforward, but it can take months to get it.
Oh, interesting.
So in the interim, I sent them back to Poland, and I went to Connecticut to look for work and a place for us to stay. So from September 2010 to early December, I was in Connecticut and they were in Poland. And I was communicating with her every day, multiple times a day. All those emails are in my book. They're all her saying, I love you, you're my world, I can't wait till we're back together. Now, like on Skype conversations, I could see that she was struggling. A couple times I considered calling it off because I thought that maybe something was happening, but I had convinced myself that we had taken care of that it wasn't going to happen again. She promised me everything was fine, and from the communication, it sounded fine, and it reassured me enough to keep focusing on what I was doing in Connecticut. So then on early December 2010, I flew back from Connecticut to the Netherlands, and they came back to our apartment in The Hague. And I wrote my wife a love letter on the train. I ran to our apartment. I was running back to heaven. I just could not wait to hold them and be back with them. 3 months apart was absolutely horrific for me. So I knocked on our door. They came down the stairs to let me in, and as soon as I saw them, I knew something was wrong. They both looked like trauma victims, and I could feel the energy coming off of them. So I go upstairs, turn on the TV for my daughter so I can talk to my wife. I go in the kitchen, and I try to kiss my wife, and it's as if I stuck her with a hot poker. She jumps away, says, "You're hurting me. I hate you, and I've always hated you, and I'm taking our daughter back to Poland." And then it just went from there. I tried to tell her that this was the exact same thing that I'd seen over and over. She said, "This is new. You've never seen this before." And at that point, she told me her family's a cult, that the reason she was taking our daughter back to Poland was because of mind control, that she had Stockholm syndrome, and that her dad created a red herring so that nobody would believe me. And like all of those things, she didn't say them all in a row. It was over the course of a couple hours on the first day. She did repeat some of them over the course of the next 3 weeks. But when she said cult, mind control, Stockholm syndrome, I told her she was crazy and that we needed to get help. I had no idea, no framework to understand those things. And I just thought, well, I've seen this before. You're not surprising me, and we're going to get help. So I think I returned on a Friday. The next day or the day after, I was again researching, and I was emailing emails to myself about borderline personality disorder and other psychiatric symptoms to try to begin understanding my wife again.
When you said you returned, you mean you went back to the U.S.?
No, when I returned
to Poland,
to the Hague.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. Yeah, Europe.
So immediately I started researching again, and then I started reaching out for help. I went to the psychologist that we were both seeing and told him, my wife says she's taking our daughter back to Poland. She's got her passport and she won't tell me where it is. And he told me that she can't take her to Poland because that would be illegal. And I said, well, it may be illegal, but she's telling me that's what she's doing, and I'm terrified. For the next 3 weeks, I tried to logically convince my wife, even with like maps on pieces of paper, that why we needed to get help, and why this was similar to what we had experienced before. And she just, and I wasn't even sure it was my wife, like, because she was adamant that she hates me and has always hated me, and everything she believed was different from everything that I had left when we separated for those 3 months, and everything that she said in all of the emails. So, I mean, she looked like my wife, but I started doubting it and looking for marks on her body to be sure.
How was your daughter during that time period?
She was back to screaming about her pee-pee. She had a big round bruise on her buttock, and that when we were changing her for bedtime, my wife said, "Tell Daddy where you got the bruise." And my daughter looked at her for assurance. She said, "Yeah, tell Daddy." And she said, "Grandpa" in Polish. And I'm standing there with my wife and my daughter in my daughter's bedroom, and just like thinking, like, you know, what the heck is going on? Like I just, like, I had like a cognitive dissonance that was unbelievable, because under no circumstances should my daughter get a bruise. Like, I don't believe in spanking, let alone whatever that would be. But it was just, I was stuck because my wife wouldn't talk to me, and I was in a foreign country alone with them, you know. So I just kind of put it aside and just kept thinking, all right, I'm going to plow forward and I'm going to figure this out. But at that point, I still couldn't even understand what you could do with a 3-year-old child, what somebody might do with a 3-year-old child.
Why didn't you call the authorities?
I didn't want to preempt my wife. I believed that she would turn around again. And I did go to the police. I didn't call them, but so I was telling the psychologist. Mm-hmm. I went to the police and told them that my wife had my daughter's passport and said she was leaving the country, and they gave me a list of family attorneys and said there's nothing we can do. So, like, and for me to go to the police was really hard, especially.
Did you mention the abuse at all?
No, not at that time. I was keeping it as simple as I could. Even with the psychologist, I didn't mention the abuse. I was just mentioning that she has her passport and she's adamant that she's leaving the country with her.
If you could go back in time, would you have talked to them about the abuse?
No, yes, I would have. Yeah.
I feel like it would have changed the outcome. Or their involvement, I should say. The outcome, let's leave that uncertain, but I think it would have changed their involvement.
I think it wasn't even a decision not to talk about it. It was more like a blindness, you know, like when your wife is cheating on you, for example, there's signs that she's cheating on you, but you just block it out, you know, until you can't anymore. So it was like I saw the signs of abuse.
Is that your philosophy on a cheating wife?
Well, it's not. I'm
just going to say I have a different one.
It's not a decision you make. It isn't. No, it's what because you don't want it to be true. So you
lie to yourself.
Yes,
which is a decision that you are making. We are our own worst enemies.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. finding your God will be a polite way to put this. Finding your wife in a car fucking the brains out of one of her coworkers, to put it lightly, and ignoring that that's happening or staying with and not doing anything about it because you don't want to admit that it is true. She is responsible for her actions, but you have to be responsible for yours in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that was happening too. My wife was seeing, or she was going out with this guy from work, and she would.
You were aware of this?
I was aware I didn't know what was happening.
Do I have to ask you about the cuckold definition again?
She would get all dressed up. He would have a taxi pick her up. She would come back drunk, and I just was happy that she was back. Like my situation was so crazy in my home that I was just trying to control what I could control, and I didn't even consider that she could be cheating on me. I just didn't even really care because I wanted to try to control what I had control over.
What did you think she was doing, getting dressed up to the nines and coming back shit-faced?
I never really took it that far. I just wanted her to come back, and I wanted her to be happy and healthy.
Ian. Okay. We got to talk. It is hard to sit here and listen to you tell this story. And again, I know the difference between hearing this and you're looking at this in the rearview mirror and working your way through the situation that you were working your way through. I don't want to say that you were a willing participant in this. I will say that, again, there is a level of naivete in this that I feel like you did a lot of mental geometry talking to yourself to be okay with the situation that you were in.
Mm-hmm. That, and I think that my wife was able to give me what I needed when she saw me getting close. Then she would offer me sex, and she would withhold that and give it to me according to
classic symptom of a loving couple.
Yep. And
Fuck, man.
And it worked. You know, like
Do you know why that works? Because men are fucking idiots.
Yes.
We literally are dumb. Michael be better than us. For him, it would be a dude, but same pathway, different chapter.
Yeah, so that worked on me, and then I was satisfied and thought, all right, we're good, and she loves me, and and then she would just play that game. Anytime that I wanted to talk about something that was serious that she didn't want to go where she didn't want to go, then she would just offer me sex, and that totally messed with my mind, and it worked. And she was dealing. She did have the pants on, and it was like she was dealing with a child, and that child was me, who just could be pulled around and manipulated. And
are you sure that first man was actually her boyfriend?
I'm not sure. No,
I don't think it's accidental that you met. I don't think it's accidental that she made the first move, and I think she selected you.
I also tend to think that way. I just in my book, I try to stick to like more factual, less trying to like figure it out. But I think that she chose me.
That's what it sounds like to me.
That's what it looks like to me, and that's what it, like, in retrospect, that's what makes more sense. It wasn't random. Like, she didn't fall in love with me the way that I fell in love with her. And then as the story plays out, it's like they wanted my daughter, and I was just a sperm donor when it comes down to it.
As horrible as that sounds, based on what you've said so far, I think that's entirely plausible.
It is entirely plausible, and with this type of cult, one thing that they need is a loving relationship for about the first 4 years of life. That creates a foundation in the child.
For the child, okay.
For the child, yeah. It helps them to endure the abuse without going crazy. It gives them an attachment which they can then manipulate. Without that, if children are only abused in the first 4 years of life, they will go crazy or they'll become psychopaths.
That checks out. Bring me up to, because you just mentioned the I know you'd used the word cult before. It sounds like you have landed pretty firmly on the fact that that is true. Bring me up to the point of where this fell apart finally with your wife and daughter.
So, around 3 weeks after we both returned to our home in The Hague, with every one of those days, me trying to convince my wife to get help, her repeating those same things again, assuring me her dad had created a red herring and that I wasn't going to be believed. And I just kept telling her she's crazy. So 2 days after Christmas, December 27th, 2010, I took my daughter out. We played in the snow, went to the park all day. Around like dinner time, my wife started texting me saying, I need you to come back. I want to take Adele to the store, my daughter to the store. And my daughter did not want to return home. She was saying, you know, I don't want to go back to mommy. I want to stay out here.
Were you guys able to connect when you had one-on-one time?
My daughter?
Yeah.
Yes, we were.
Okay.
But I mean, she was a month away from 4 years old at that time, and I was just.
Was she less standoffish though? Like,
okay. Like she was healing. Like the symptoms that she came back with cleared up.
Okay.
She cleared up and became. You know, we had a really good relationship. I was a stay-at-home dad for the last year that we were together, and I mean, I was really close to my daughter, and I knew her. So yeah, all that stuff started to clear up, and she was more cognizant, speaking clearly. She was teaching me some Polish words as we walked around. So on that last day, my wife kept texting me, and my daughter didn't want to go back, but I was like, you know, mommy loves you, and she's probably making dinner. And so we went home, and then my wife was waiting at the top of the stairs, and that was the first time in those 3 weeks that she was like dressed up and ready to go somewhere. And she was like, what, you know, she was frantic. Where have you been? I've been waiting. I want to take her to the store. And I'm like, well, you know, we'll go to the store together, the three of us, but you've been telling me you're taking her to Poland and you have her passport. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we're not going to the store right now. So I was like, slow down. So I put my daughter on the couch and turned on her favorite movie, made popcorn and tea. And we're sitting there, my daughter and I on the couch. My wife is stewing, you know, trying to convince me to let her take my daughter to the store. And I'm just like, you know, I can't trust you. You're telling me that this is what's happening, that you're taking her, and you have her passport. And so that went on for half an hour. Then someone knocked on my door downstairs. There was a guy that we knew, real shady guy. He came up and distracted me. And he said that his wife and daughter, who my daughter was friends with, were at the library down the street. And could my daughter go visit her friend?
Was your wife on the phone at all?
She was on the phone.
When, in the time before that guy showed up?
Yep. Yeah, so I think that she...
Did you ask her for the passport?
I did ask her for the passport.
Like, yeah, you can go to the store, but give me the passport.
I asked her for the passport. For that entire 3 weeks, I was asking for the passport, or my idea was, you can give me either yours or our daughter's, and I'll give you mine, and then neither of us can do anything.
What was her response?
She wouldn't do it.
What was her explanation?
She just wouldn't do it flat out. Like there was no explanation. She just kept saying, I'm taking our daughter back to Poland, and period. And there was no explanation beyond that. And I was begging her to get help and begging her to make that passport exchange, just so that neither of us had the ability to do what she was threatening to do.
Why'd you let that guy in the house?
So it was a guy that I knew, and he just, I wouldn't let him in the house today. I wouldn't let him in my life today. He just kind of, like, I opened the door and he just kind of walked in, and I didn't say no.
Why?
I don't know why. I think it was like I just got pushed over. He was forceful, didn't really offer me the option, was kind of like, I'm here and I'm coming in.
You ever slam the door in somebody's face? It's pretty fucking fun.
I don't recall ever slamming the door in someone's face.
Tomorrow's a new day. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
leave it as a menu item for later on in your life.
Oh, yeah, that sort of man I would not let in my life.
I think we can say we know how he got to your doorstep and why. Mm-hmm. Did you let your daughter go down to the library?
So I did.
Did you ever see her again?
I did not. So, and my wife had my daughter come and give me a big hug while I was talking to this man in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And she wrapped her arms around me. I can still feel it, and I had to peel her off because it felt odd. Like, why is she giving me such a big hug? She's just going to the library, and I just said, "I love you." And she walked away, walked down the stairs. My wife turned, walked down the stairs, and I never saw my daughter again.
Did you know something was wrong in the moment?
I didn't know anything.
Did it feel right?
I let my guard down, and
But did it feel right?
In the moment, I was kind of like a deer in headlights. I was looking at how beautiful I thought my wife was, and just like, I love you guys and have fun. But then after that man left, I called my best friend, who I've known since I was 15. He's in Arizona. I called him, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. It's happening again. And about 5 or 10 minutes into that conversation, it hit me, and I snapped out of whatever happened to me, and I knew they were gone.
Did it make sense to you that man had just appeared and had this story about his daughter being alone down at the library and he wasn't with her?
No, his wife was supposedly with her.
Did it make sense that him showing up in that time period with your wife having been on the phone before he showed up, with her adamancy about needing to... I mean, I have 3 kids. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you right now, my ex-wife would never argue with me to take one of the kids to the store. Be like, hey, fucker, have fun. I'm going to go to the store around the block. I'll be back in about 6 hours because these kids are driving me fucking crazy because they're insane. Meaning, there's no reason to have to take your daughter to the store. It would make her life easier if she didn't.
Mm-hmm. And she was begging me and just like
she
needed. It did seem off. So that, I mean, I said no to that. It was only when the man came, then I went in the kitchen and was making coffee and smoking cigarettes with him, that my mind shifted over to what he was talking about. And then I just thought, okay, well, if my daughter's going to see her friend at the library, that seems okay to me. And it was almost like I felt bad saying no. Like I'm keeping my daughter from seeing her friend at that point. So it was just that way worked.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do. I have one of each.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Okay. How were your parents growing up?
I mean, my parents were supportive and loving, and they always had time for us. And
what were their thoughts on conflict?
Conflict with my brother and sister?
In general. Standing up for what you believe in. Standing up for yourself. Did you guys ever fight when you were younger? Like physical violence, how is that viewed in your family?
There wasn't much of it. I mean,
yeah. I'm not advocating for it.
I would give my brother dead legs and stuff like that.
I'm not advocating for it, but I mean, did your parents ever say like, hey, under no circumstances, you should never fight? You know, I'm trying to get an understanding of... No,
I think they would have both been okay, you know, to punch a bully.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's I guess what I was getting towards. How long after? So you said about 15 minutes. You snapped out of it.
Mm-hmm. So when I was on the phone with my best friend, that's when I realized they're gone, and that what my wife had been saying was happening. And I didn't process it all at once, but I realized they were gone. And the man who had helped them to get out, he had said he was going to the bar down the street to get a paycheck or something.
The one whose wife was at the library? Okay.
Yeah, so I told my best friend I've got to go, and I sprinted to that bar and was looking for him. I was just following the trail. The people at the bar said they hadn't seen him in several months. So from there I sprinted to the library. The library was closed, and the police department was right around the corner from the library. So when I I left the library, went to the police department. The police department was locked, so I pounded on the door. Then I went in and just said, you need to stop them from going to Poland. My wife has been telling me she's taking our daughter to Poland. I know that's what's happening. And at that point, that's when I started talking about the abuse symptoms. Because at that point, it was like, it's happening. And it's just also the blockages that I had started to fall. And I'm like, they're going to Poland, and I know they're being abused in Poland. And please stop. And I thought they were going to take a bus. So I said, please stop the bus before it leaves the Netherlands. And the police wouldn't take a formal report, and just basically told me to go home and cool down. They were like, well, your wife's an adult, and why can't she take your daughter back to Poland if she wants to? And it's like, you don't understand. For 3 weeks, I've been dealing with this, and she's been threatening this entire time to do this, and my daughter just came back from Poland with symptoms of abuse. But they wouldn't help, so I returned home and contacted the U.S. Embassy. And the duty officer that I spoke to on the phone told me that my best option was to try to reabduct my daughter from my wife, if I could find her, get her to the embassy, where then she would be on American soil, and they guaranteed she would be evaluated.
Yeah.
And I looked out my window and just was like, what the heck is going on? Like I felt like I was in a crazy movie, and I could like imagining that could happen, where I see my wife and daughter and somehow get my almost 4-year-old daughter away from her to the net and to the embassy or the consulate was crazy. But I also printed out the directions to the embassy and the consulate and put them in my back pocket just in case.
Were you prepared to do what was necessary to get your daughter back to that embassy?
So I thought that I would probably have to push my wife on the ground and maybe steal or break her phone. And
at a minimum,
I would have done that. Yeah.
What if that man was there?
The man I wouldn't have had trouble trying to incapacitate. It was the thought of having to do anything to my wife at all that was something that would have been difficult for me.
Have you considered that she didn't think of herself as your wife?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in those past 3 weeks, she was telling me that I hate you and I've always hated you. And she was telling me things like, God doesn't approve of our marriage, like things like that. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? And many other things like that. But like I was dealing with two versions of her. So I knew the one that was the healthiest woman I had ever known. And then I knew this other one that was just absolutely crazy, and to the point where I thought she was possessed and that her head might spin around like on The Exorcist. And I told her that, and then like I was having uncontrollable diarrhea, like walking around in our apartment or in bed, night sweats to where I'd have to get up and put towels down because of that version of my wife. But I still believed that the other one was underneath that, and I loved her, and just wanted her to get help, because the version of my wife that took my daughter is not the healthy version. Something was happening in Poland, and she was returning with that, and it was making her miserable and nasty. And
have you considered that the happy version of your wife was the one that was actually the charade, and the possessed version of your wife was actually the real person?
So I have considered that, but I think that, and that is probably the version that is out there now. And the more, I don't think that the happy one is really existing too much, and has existed other than like in our little home sometimes.
Which means, though, that it's not real.
I know. Well,
my snapshot of this is that the person that you called your wife had a plan for this from the beginning, and she was complicit in the trafficking of your daughter from the beginning.
She was, but I look at it as My wife is just an older version of my daughter. And so the reason my wife is the way that she is.
Your wife is just an older version. Okay.
So she was created through trauma to be that.
And nobody is responsible for the trauma that happens to them, but you're 100% responsible for what you do with it. And if you do something with it to others.
And I believe that she wants freedom, that she wants out of this. And I believe that that's why she told me what she told me and why she didn't. I think she could have made me commit suicide. I think that she could have absolutely buried me. But instead of that, she made me stronger during the course of our relationship, and she gave me hints and told me things so that I would be where I'm at today, fighting for them.
Are you still fighting for both of them?
I am still fighting for both of them. Which it's a difficult thing, but it's so.
I'm concerned about that statement.
But so I think
your daughter is innocent.
She is,
in my opinion. Your wife is not.
But what are you familiar with Patty Hearst?
No. The Hearst family?
Yes. So
to say that I know the name is the limit of my familiarity, and I've been to the Hearst Castle one time. They got a really cool indoor pool.
So she was abducted at the age of 19.
Okay.
And put in a closet and brainwashed until she agreed to become a part of this group. And they said, we'll let you go or you can join the group. And when they were done with her brainwashing, she wanted to join the group because you take on the beliefs of the captors, right?
I get it.
So then she was robbing banks and doing other things with this group, and eventually she got arrested. And like, if she hadn't got arrested, if her family wasn't rich, people would have just assumed she is where she wants to be, and that's who she is. She's a criminal.
So that is a good example, and I'll give you that. There are similarities. How many examples do you think exist where that's just the person that it is? My guess is orders of magnitude greater than Patty Hearst. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the examples of people who are broken or are just an evil person also exist, and they're doing exactly what they want to do.
I see that point, but I think that it's hard, like because of the level of trauma beginning at an early age that I know my wife endured, my first wife endured, and that I saw signs of in my daughter. It's once you understand that trauma, the torture and the incest and the Patty Hearst in the closet times a million, because it's.
I would say times a million because of when it started. Patty Hearst at least was along the journey of becoming a fully formed adult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, men, it's like, what is it, about 25 until the prefrontal cortex fully forms and we become the more rigid version of ourselves. I think women develop at a little bit earlier age, but it's also possible that trauma could completely break somebody, and regardless of what you do to try to help them, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying, for every Patty Hearst that's out there, I feel like there are countless other people. And it's not that they should be abandoned, but if you are, and I don't want to say recklessly, but if you are endlessly trying to pour into them, it might be like rain hitting Teflon, just bouncing off.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to at least recognize that that's possible as well. It is possible she is like Patty Hearst. It's also possible that she's an incredibly dangerous sociopathic person because of what happened to her.
I think she is dangerous right now, and my desire would be to get her away from the perpetrators. I mean, she is a perpetrator as well, when it comes down to it, legally and functionally. But there's people that are higher than her, people that programmed her from a child. Mm-hmm. She said she had Stockholm Syndrome to me, but she would do things like her father would get an elbow injury and couldn't play tennis, and she would break down and start crying about that. Like, my dad can't play tennis and he loves tennis, and she would cry. And this is a woman who didn't cry. So Stockholm Syndrome and the attachment-based trauma is so powerful, and the bonding begins so early, and the child has to has to capitulate to the desires of the abuser to survive, and because they need love in whatever form it is, even if it's just letting them out of the closet after they've been in the closet, or giving them food or a hug. A child needs that. And so that the perpetrators use that knowledge of child development and attachment to completely bond these children to them. And I believe that's what happened to my first wife.
How old would she be now?
She's going to be 42 in July.
So how many years of her life do you think she's been in that ecosystem?
I think every year except for the ones where she was in the United States with me.
Trying to talk you back to that ecosystem, to return.
Yes.
Willingly. Or being directed to through whatever means we may not know. Phone call, whatever. So I'm going to call it 42 years of her life. She's been under that influence. You think that you can correct that?
So I don't think that I can necessarily.
You think it can be corrected?
I think it
would be a better way to put that. I didn't mean to put that on you.
I think it can be corrected, yes. I think that if she was away from the perpetrators and around people who have knowledge of this sort of complex trauma, deprogrammers, and that I think she could heal. And I know people. I'm a part of the survivor community now, and I'm part of groups and have friends who have escaped from these places.
What if you're wrong?
I think the book shows that I'm not wrong.
Do you even have it in your mind, a possibility that you could be wrong?
I mean, no, because it played out exactly how she said it was going to. I mean, like,
there's two numbers that are equally inaccurate in this life: 0 and 100%.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, 100% is a stretch, and I don't
it's
like
an absolute.
I don't like to say I'm 100% certain.
Just 99.9.
I could say 98.
Fair enough. I'm just saying, like, hey, let's be careful with absolutes.
Yeah, and you're right, because I was 100% certain that I wouldn't get remarried, and then I did.
What? Okay. Holy shit. That adds a complication. What does your current wife think about your first wife?
So she loves her and as a sister and wants her to be away from the cult. No, just through my story.
Okay.
But when I met,
you are out of your fucking mind.
when I met my second wife.
Please tell me on the first date you didn't bring this shit up.
I did.
In
our first conversation. It always comes up.
And I didn't mean to say bring this shit up. That's a horrible way to talk about the situation you've lived through. I apologize. You're out of your fucking mind. She loves her like a sister. Okay. Your daughter will be what, 18 now?
She'll be 18 in January.
Bring me up to modern day, at whatever pace you want to. So we were back in the apartment. You recognize something off, right? Mm-hmm. You go to the bar, nothing there. Library, nothing there. Cops, nothing there. Call the embassy.
It's out of the embassy's jurisdiction. There's nothing they could do. They said reabduct her, but I never had a chance to. So at that point, I went back to the Dutch police a couple more times. They still wouldn't help. My mother and father at first were supportive, and they're trying to put me in contact with other embassy people and stuff like that. And then my first wife got a hold of them, and exactly what she warned me was going to happen with her dad having created a red herring.
What is a red herring? Not to ask a stupid question, but I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
So a red herring is something. Well, the term comes from hunting with dogs. So
sounds like it's fishing with dogs.
when you're hunting with dogs that are hunting dogs, they'll follow a trail, a scent, and
dogs hunting other dogs.
No, dogs hunting like foxes or
okay, got you. Other animals, right?
So if you're trying to protect what you're hunting. Like then you can use the red herring smell, which is a stronger smell, to pull the dogs off of the real trail onto the fake trail.
Okay.
So
It's a diversionary path.
It's a diversionary path.
Okay.
And it's also commonly used in like fiction, crime fiction, stuff like that, where the author will try to, keep the reader away from the truth with things that will draw them away that seem more likely or easier to follow.
Okay.
So, yeah, she told me that my drug, psychological, and criminal histories were going to be used against me, and that was the red herring. And I just thought, well, I don't care what.
Did you have a criminal history?
So I didn't have a criminal history. I don't have a criminal record.
Okay.
But, I was arrested.
For what?
So with her ex-boyfriend, her boyfriend that came over.
It's not her boyfriend. That was her handler.
He came up the stairs. This is before we returned to Poland to get the fiancé visa. He came up the stairs to get his box of things. And I told her I don't want him coming over here. I'll drop off his box. But she said, no, he's coming over. So we were sitting up on the porch eating cheese and crackers with a buck knife on the table. He comes up and immediately punches me in the face. I stand up and my then fiance tries to jump in between us, so I pick her up and move her behind and pick up the knife and say, get the F off my property. And he goes down and calls the police and tells the police that I pulled a gun on him because I had shown him a handgun that I had. Now, luckily, the handgun wasn't on the premises. I had moved it because when we went up to New York to get engaged, I didn't want the gun left in my apartment, so I moved it. But a SWAT team came to my apartment.
Oh, that's fun. It's an early swatting call.
Yeah, and that's what it was. Like he knew I had a gun, so he was trying to really mess me up.
Again, I don't think that was a boyfriend.
I don't either.
If I was a person playing chess, I would have him come to initiate that, hoping for a violent response so they could then report it in the development of what might be used against you later on.
Yeah, I agree. And we were both arrested. The police which I don't think should have happened, and eventually the charges were dropped because he did punch me, and all I did is use a weapon to frighten him away rather than punching him back.
I mean, let's just call it a cheese knife. Okay. But how about the psychological and drug history? Like, where's this coming from?
I had over the course of my life, I'd been diagnosed with depression, panic disorder, and ADHD.
Okay.
And a lot of those symptoms were from living with my wife. The depression and panic disorder were just from the constant fluctuations in my home. Constantly, she was always withholding information and sex and everything. So, and like I didn't know what to expect. I was afraid a lot of the times. And then ADHD as well. I think a lot of people could be diagnosed with ADHD, or
ADHD could be total bullshit.
Well, it is. I mean, I don't really believe in it anymore, but I think it looks like psychological abuse symptoms.
Yeah, I'm not saying ADHD is bullshit. I'm saying that it certainly seems like it's a blatant, or not a blatant, but a blanket diagnosis that is applied widely, much more broadly than it used to be, and perhaps because it's so broad, it's far less precise.
And usually it has something to do with some kind of trauma, in my estimation. Okay. And in my case, it did. But so those things were...
That was the red herring.
Like, yeah, even though I didn't have a criminal record technically, even though I wasn't taking any medication, I was taking ADHD medication at that time, but it didn't do anything to me except help me focus and help me so I could read a book in one sitting. But it didn't matter because those things were enough. And I had tried a lot of drugs. That was part of the red herring as well. I believed in exploring. I believed in getting to the bottom of what's true and what's not true. And I knew that there was a lot of propaganda, against drugs that wasn't true, and that the drug war was a load of crap for them.
We're definitely winning. We're at the cusp of victory.
Yeah,
it's money well spent.
Yeah.
It's really good. fuck.
Yep. So I just wanted to get to the bottom of it and figure it out. And so I had done a bunch of things, and I did smoke marijuana when I was over in Europe. But again, these things were like not the issue. It was a red herring.
Okay.
But over in Poland, because I ended up over in Poland, I tried to get help for the next 4 months, and my parents turned on me. Because my first wife got their ear, and she said that she escaped from me in fear of their lives, and that now they're safe. And
why would your parents believe that?
I really don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. I think it's a combination of my first wife was really good at persuasion, and like she had the pants on in our relationship. She has the pants on in the relationship with my parents too. And also, because my daughter was taken, I started to flip out, and I was at my computer typing emails, trying to get help, staying up, until I crashed, and talking about things like mind control and cults. And so my first wife was the voice of reason to my parents.
How much time did they spend with her?
A few hours.
Okay.
So
they had a very limited snapshot of who she actually was.
Very limited snapshot.
But they didn't have a limited snapshot of who you are.
Mm-hmm. I know. And it's still to this day.
Are they still alive?
They are still alive.
Have you talked with them about this?
I try to talk to them about it. My mother absolutely hates the book, and she won't talk to me.
She hates the idea that the book exists, or she hates
she won't read it. She refuses to read it, and she still has communication with my first wife and my daughter, and she's withheld that information now we're in the 14th year. So at this point, we don't have a relationship, and I'm just hoping that she will read the book and reconsider. But she's doubled down on her decision, and she says things like like even weeks after the abduction, my mother would say, "I know your first wife. I know who she is, and I know the story." So she made a decision about what she thought happened, and then she continued down that road and just kept doubling down and doubling down.
What about your dad?
I think he took the lead of my mom for the most part, and they both in a sense testified against me later on.
What about your siblings?
Well, as of right now, my sister has a Facebook post with my first wife's picture that says, ever since I was a child, I wanted a sister. Now I have a BFF, and it's her. And it's just like...
So she's still actively communicating with
my sister. She just started, and she's being used by my first wife. Like my first wife does not care about her.
What is she being used for?
To cause division in my family, to try to... Because as of right now, like I've pretty much cut myself off from my family because they hate the book. They don't want to read it. They don't like that some of their first names are in there. That they had a role, even though I'll say unintended role, which led to my daughter being successfully abducted from me. They were used, and they don't want to address that. They want to believe that I am, a wife beater and crazy. That's easier for them to believe than what I've been trying to say since day one when it happened.
Turning on their own family in your eyes is easier for them to believe than they were lied to by your first wife?
It blows my mind, but that's how it is to this day.
How actively do they communicate with her and your daughter?
So I don't know exactly. I know about my sister's Facebook post. And my mother recently told my second wife that she's been in communication with my first wife and our daughter. But I don't know.
Does your mom talk with your second wife?
No.
You just said she did.
Well, she said that, but
Yeah.
but she doesn't talk in detail about anything. She'll.
Why do you think she would bring that up to her?
she's trying to convince my second wife that she has information that like gives her like a more rounded view of the situation than what my second wife has. But that's without having read my book.
Okay, bring me up to modern day. So for 4 months, you're looking for help.
4 months, I tried to get help, and then I had like, an international human trafficking organization who was that was like the biggest help I found, and he contacted Interpol, but all that he could do was have the local Polish police do an investigation, and their investigation involved knocking on the door, asking my first wife if everything's fine, and then doing a walkthrough. And of course, they didn't find any signs of abuse based on that investigation. So 4 months, and I'm just like, what? How much more time can I wait? What should I do as a dad? And you know, I was living with a couple friends, and they're like, you got to do what you got to do. So I was back in the United States at this time. I sold my car, bought a ticket to Amsterdam, put a few $100s on a prepaid credit card so I could rent a car when I got to Amsterdam. And I did that. I flew to Amsterdam, rented a car, drove across Germany to Poland, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I printed out maps from my first wife's grandfather's summer house because the way that she said the name of that town to me led me to believe that there was something going on there. So I thought maybe I'll go there and try to grab my daughter and get her across the Polish border to Germany, to the U.S. Embassy in Berlin. Well, then she'll be evaluated. I had maps from the other city where they are to Berlin because I wanted to still do what the duty officer said. And this was after I did file out a Hague abduction report because it's illegal to take a child from their country of residence to another country. The only way that they got away with it was because of the pretense that it was because of me and because my mother and father supported that idea. If my mother and father had said, no, let's listen to Ian, that never would have been okay. But I filed the Hague abduction, and the U.S. Secretary of State told me that it could take 2 years, and I wasn't willing to take 2 years. So I'm driving to Germany, not sure what I'm going to do. Like morally and ethically, I think maybe I'll kill him. Maybe I'll kill my father-in-law. Then at least she'll have one less abuser. But I wanted to get her to Berlin if I could. But as I'm driving to Germany, I'm thinking that's ridiculous. Either of those locations are about an hour from Berlin. I'm going to have to get my then 4-year-old daughter into a car. And I just pictured, cars chasing me or helicopters or spike strips or whatever during that hour drive. And so I let that idea go. On my way there, I stop at a gas station. I'm like, I'm going to get a weapon, but I still didn't know what I was going to do. I looked at the knives hanging on the wall in the gas station, and they didn't have a lock blade. So I'm like, well, that's not going to work. Right next to them was a used hammer. So I bought a used hammer. And I'm just thinking like,
odd choice, but I like where your head's at.
Well, that was the only thing available, and I couldn't even imagine really what I would do with it. Like it just blew my mind that I was doing any of this at all. But I was just like, I'll have a weapon in the car. And then as I got into Poland, it's just the plan started to come together, even though I didn't know exactly what I was going to do when it came down to it. So I because my ex-father-in-law, is an alcoholic, I knew that he came out to throw his beer cans away every morning. So I'm like, all right, I will park my car, wait for him to come out, and I will create a big commotion, and that will get me arrested, which will then lead to me having a lawyer and an interpreter. And because of the lawyer and the interpreter, I will therefore have a child abuse investigation.
That's a really horrible plan.
I know. People tell me that. But I had no idea what to do, and I had no support, and I didn't have any money.
You didn't think of just like snatching your daughter up? Not that I'm trying to give ideas to anybody from like how to abduct their kids, but The plan you came up with was like a very circuitous. Maybe you'll frame a house. Maybe you'll frame a guy's head with the hammer, in the hopes of getting arrested. So they'll give you a lawyer that you could then use that lawyer to do a child abuse investigation.
Yeah, I see now that it was foolish and I highly miscalculated how the justice system works. That they weren't going to look at the why of what I did; they were going to only look at what I did. But getting my daughter in Poland from whoever she was going to be with, and leaving that country an hour away to get to Berlin, seemed more far fetched to me. And by that time, I was desperate, and I was just like, every day that went by was torture to me, and I just wanted a child abuse investigation. I was begging the authorities in Holland and the United States and Poland, who I reached out to, just evaluate my daughter. Just put us in a room together, put her and my first wife in a room together. Just do whatever that is. And with whatever these other accusations are that are coming my way, I'll take the electric chair if you just evaluate my daughter. I don't care what they're saying. I know what's true and what's not true. All I want is an evaluation of my daughter. And I just thought that the details of what I did wouldn't matter once they did a child abuse investigation. And I was wrong. So he came out of his apartment building to throw his cans away. I started my car and drove the car to block the door. I sped around him. I could have drilled him with the car. The court later says that I tried to hit him with the car and missed or something, but he didn't see me. I could have flattened him with the car. I crashed the car into a wall, and blocked his egress through that door. Then it was just like a wind-up doll that was happening, and I didn't even know. I wasn't thinking about what was happening. I was just doing it. So I reached behind me and grabbed the hammer, got out of the car, and chased him down the street.
Okay.
And that's
so far you're really helping their case and not doing a fucking thing to help yours.
I know. And that's where I realized I wasn't going to kill him. Is when I was
because he could run faster than you.
No. I knew he's not slow, but I had played basketball against him. I knew that I was going to get him. I did pump fake the hammer a couple times like a tomahawk, because he was rubbernecking back towards me, and he made like a squealing noise because I totally caught him by surprise.
Yeah, almost like he was being chased by a fucker with a hammer. You might make a squealing noise too.
So, but that and it just was like, it was a surreal experience. I'm just like, I wasn't emotional. I wasn't mad at that point.
You went to jail, didn't you?
I did go to jail.
Yeah, shocker.
So he fell down like 20 or 30 paces down, just kind of plopped down, and I switched the hammer to my non-punching hand and hit him with my punching hand, which I had put my wedding ring on my right ring finger so that I could hit him with my wedding ring.
Yeah, all signs of a totally sane human being.
And I punched him, 5 or so times, and then I just waited to be arrested, just kind of stayed locked up with him. And then I got arrested, and I was like, all right, I did what I needed to do. Now I'm going to get to talk to somebody.
Yeah, about assault.
Yep. Attempted murder.
Yeah.
That's what they gave me, attempted murder. So
just for clarity, because that's what you did.
Well, I didn't.
You chased a motherfucker with a hammer.
But I didn't hit him with a hammer.
That's hence the attempted?
He said I hit him with a hammer. That's what... No, I could have hit him with a hammer, but I chose not to.
Yeah, that's why the attempted is attached to the murder.
So I spent 2 days in a Polish jail. Then I went before a judge, and immediately I tried to talk to the judge about evaluating my daughter, but the judge just didn't want to hear what I had to say. I tried to ask for a change of venue because my ex-father-in-law is a bigwig in the city and has a friend who's a judge in that same buildings, but they just didn't care what I had to say. And because of what I did, because my first wife was against me, and because my parents were against me. So I had nobody standing next to me. So then I went to Polish pretrial prison.
That sounds like a hoot.
It's crazy. Nobody spoke English. One or two people spoke broken English, but it was just me listening to them speaking Polish and eventually learning it, but because I had to. But I spent 19 months in Polish pretrial, and I didn't see a lawyer until I was there for 11 months. And we're just in a box, 7 people in a box. They're solid walls, so you have no communication with anybody outside your cell, no use of the phone. Any letters that you sent have to be translated and screened by the prosecutor. So it took months to send a letter. But I had no help anyways. So I just kind of, I was sending letters out to, still I was writing to like Polish news agencies, Polish child protection services, to the prosecutor. But they just used those letters to make me seem more crazy.
Okay.
So what happened is I saw a lawyer after 11 months, and this lawyer was a public defender, a Polish public defender, who just took the facts from the prosecutor's file and was totally unwilling to question those facts. I wasn't allowed to call witnesses on my behalf.
Were you still trying to talk to him about your daughter?
I was. Even so, they gave me a psychiatric evaluation.
So in the hopes that somebody else was going to get a psychiatric evaluation, you ended up netting yourself one.
Mm-hmm. I ended up netting myself one. And so the court psychiatrists, they have the prosecutor's file. The prosecutor's file says nobody else believes that Ian's daughter was abused other than Ian. And the prosecutor has talked to the first wife. He has evidence from Ian's mother and father that nobody believes it. So I was diagnosed with a delusion because of that. And a delusion, all that is you believe something that there's no evidence for, mm-hmm. and that nobody else believes. So I was just a goner. And I'm still trying to say, but you don't know because you haven't evaluated my daughter, and my daughter is the evidence. But these court psychiatrists don't care. They work alongside the prosecutor. And the facts that are in that file are the facts. And so my plea for witnesses from the Netherlands who knew my first wife and I, my plea just to have somebody evaluate my daughter who had a knowledge of caregiver inflicted complex trauma. None of that mattered, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that even my parents weren't on my side. I believe that if I was allowed to call witnesses, or if my mother and father stood next to me and just said, we don't understand what's going on, or we're going to support what Ian wants because he's the father, they wouldn't have been able to diagnose me with that. So then, after 19 months in Polish pretrial, I was sent to one of, I think it's 3 maximum security prison psychiatric hospitals. And that place was unbelievable.
Unbelievable good, unbelievable bad.
It was way worse than prison.
Okay.
I mean, prison's not fun because you can't open the door, but at least you don't have people watching you and trying to force feed you medication. And the people there were, I mean, there were people who, like, one guy pretended he was a John Deere tractor.
Fuck yeah. What kind of attachments did he have? Like the little claw? Did he have the bucket?
He would just get down and just start to pull levers.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
Several people had like their wrists strapped to their waist with leather things because they might just punch at any time.
Yeah, or chase somebody with a hammer.
Yeah. Well, that was only the person who I knew was abusing my daughter. I wasn't just dangerous in general.
Says you. How'd you get out of prison?
So,
what was your sentence?
So there was no sentence because not guilty because insane, right? So, which was better because
I guess
attempted murder would be 8 to 25 years in Poland.
Okay, I'm following what you're putting down.
So not guilty because insane means all I got to do is stop talking about my daughter.
Yeah, I suspect that's not possible for you.
Well, it was. Once I realized that these people...
Let's remember what you talked about on your first date with your current wife.
Well, she's not a psychiatrist.
So you shelved it to get out.
Yes.
Okay.
So so at that point I had a computer and I was able to research. So I was just researching, psychiatry and what they're looking at, what they can nail me on, what they can't nail me on. And my first visit with the head of the facility, he's like, you don't have any signs of mental illness, but the court wants you here, and because the court wants you here, you're going to be in this system for another 18 months at least. Oof. And you can't. And he's like, under Polish law, I could release you today, but that's not what the court wants. So I can send them an opinion in 6 months, and then you'll go from maximum to medium to minimum, and then you can be
titrate
released.
Your way out.
Yeah.
So you just spent all your time on a computer.
While I was in maximum, I was allowed to, okay. and one of the therapists there could see through the court paperwork and realize that I wasn't what was in the write-up, and she said, I told my husband, I know you're not crazy, but I don't know what I can do. So she's like, I can give you more time on the computer, and I can teach you Polish.
So you read the entire internet?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I went back to people like Carl Jaspers and the fathers of psychiatry. And
I have some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Is the world flat or round?
I believe it's round.
Okay. Bigfoot, real or fake?
Never seen him.
Okay. QAnon, legit or bullshit?
Bullshit.
Okay. You seem relatively not crazy with those answers. I was afraid you might answer a little bit off with some of those. How'd you finally get out?
I played the game. It was like being stuck in a trap, and I basically just had to stop fighting. Yeah. And tell them that I'm crazy. I'm going to always be crazy. I need medication. Thank you for helping me. And they would say, well, you're going to have to forget about your daughter. And I'd be like, yeah, okay. I wrote a letter to my ex-father-in-law apologizing, and I just was myself, except that I just left my daughter for when I got out. Okay. Never for a moment did I change course. It was just, this is a serious trap. I'm not going to be able to get out of here.
Yeah, you recognize
unless I play the game.
You recognize what you're in. Okay, what year did you get out?
I got out on June 2015.
Okay. And what do you do the day you get out of Polish?
So
Hoo-Haville.
They weren't going to release me unless someone picked me up, is what I was told, which was ridiculous because I was maybe 40 or something at the time, or 39 maybe. So my dad came over to Poland. I had to work with the embassy to get a new passport because my passport had expired. So my dad picked me up. We drove to the city in Poland to start a family rights case so that I could get my father's rights protected. So my dad was willing to help with that.
Your father's rights? Oh, as a father?
Yeah, parental rights. Yeah.
Okay.
So we hired the first English speaking lawyer we could find there. And then my dad and I went to Prague, and we went to from Prague we went to Hamburg, Germany, with someone who I was in prison with for 11 months, and we had a getting out of prison party. Then I went to Amsterdam and stayed with a friend in Amsterdam for the next several months, and just to unwind and get my head back, because prison, and especially psychiatric prison, is a very difficult place.
Oh, I bet.
So it took a while to realize that I can open the door when I want to, that I don't have to get up and talk to these psychiatrists who are just ridiculous to talk to. And then after several months in Amsterdam, I went back to Connecticut with my dad because I couldn't work in Amsterdam anymore. The only reason I could work in Amsterdam in the first place was because my first wife was a Polish citizen. Sense. So I returned to Connecticut. My dad has a farm in Connecticut. He just said, here's your room. He bought me a car, and I started farming and just trying to figure out what to do next. Back to the drawing board, back to my serious research and writing. I started writing the current book, and I just started praying. And I do believe that there's good and evil, and that good has to win, or else there's no point to what we're doing here. So just trying to figure out what that means and where I need to go.
What did you find out about the situation that your daughter and first wife, are in? You mentioned the term cult, abuse. What do you think is going on there? What are they wrapped up in?
So I think it's an intergenerational satanic cult, where it's about control and power more than it is about sexual abuse. But the sexual abuse is one of the traumas that is used to gain total control over the child and maintain it. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of survivors around the world who are coming out with the same stories of this type of cult.
Where does the satanic aspect fall into that?
So this satanic aspect is because they intentionally call in and instill demonic forces to cement their programming. And this is something that
ritual. It's like a ritual.
Rituals, yeah.
Okay.
So it's ritualized, and they're tapping into these demonic forces, which I didn't believe in prior to this, but even secular psychologists understand that, and demonology is used to cement the programming.
Okay.
Like you can condition somebody, say you can condition yourself to wake up at 5 a.m., but over time that conditioning is going to wear off, and you're going to start to wake up at 5:30, 5:45, unless you maintain that. But when you use the demonic forces to cement it, then they're like protecting that conditioning, and
the demons are?
The demons are, yeah. I
What kind of movies do you like? What do you watch in your free time?
No, I mean it's real. Unfortunately, it's real.
I believe you that you believe. I take people at face value when they tell me things. When they tell me there's something that they believe.
We'll have to send you a couple more books.
You can send them. Depending on what they are, I may not read them. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll check them out. Maybe. You and I might be into some different shit. Just after
I'm sure we are.
Yeah, which is okay. That's what's the beautiful thing about the world.
I was into different things before this hit me in the face.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect world. What would you hope happens? If you could get everything that you wanted, what would that look like?
Well, I mean that's a tough question.
I know, because you still love your first wife and you're married again.
Well, I don't love my first wife in the same way that I once loved her, nor do I.
What would you want between your relationship between the two of you?
I just want her to be free.
Okay.
I want her to be free. I want her to be able to make her own decisions and not be part of that cult.
Okay. You don't want her to be your wife anymore.
No.
That'd be an interesting throuple situation you'd have to work yourself through.
No, I had to think of that I had to process that when I met my second wife, right?
Yeah.
Like I had made a decision that I wasn't going to marry anybody that I didn't want to, and I thought I was going to live as a monk at that point.
Okay. Perfect situation for your daughter. What are you looking for?
Same thing, freedom.
Okay.
It's about freedom. It's about getting them away from the worst evil that I never knew existed.
So it's her own family. It's basically this secular inside of this family that is... Are they sending the daughter out into the wild to find somebody to have a child with to bring them back so that this circle can continue? Like, what is the aim of this cult?
I mean, it's total control over
but they
the
have
cult
to keep
members.
getting new members. Otherwise,
I don't know the details of how they do that, or why I became involved. I don't know.
Okay.
yeah, they definitely. I don't think that the members are choosing who they marry in the sense of the way that we would think people choose who to marry. I don't think that they have control over most aspects of their lives.
Have you considered having your current wife talk with your mom a little bit more to figure out the level of communications that she has with your first wife and daughter? So maybe it's under false pretenses. Maybe it's just an information gathering journey just to figure out what she can find.
I mean, that's a whole other story. My mother will not talk to either of us.
Well, she obviously talked to her enough to let her know that she's still talking to your previous family.
Yeah. So my stepdad died in 2021.
Okay.
My mom invited us to move onto her property, saying that she couldn't keep it unless we were there, and that's what my stepdad would want. So we remodeled a post and beam barn, made it into our home, and then as this book started to come out, and we also had another survivor, a survivor of this same type of abuse, stay on our couch, and my mom got mad about that and mad about the book, and now we're being evicted by my mom, and we haven't talked to her at all since February.
What does your wife do for a living?
She was my editor.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
We've been substitute teaching while we were writing the book.
Do you come from family money?
No.
Where did you get these ranches from then?
My dad was a builder.
Okay.
So he just...
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, like, some people will ask that in the attempt to be like, oh, you silver spoon. I'm just fascinated by people's stories.
I've worked in social services, education, criminal justice a little bit.
Yeah.
But since I got back out of prison, I was farming on my dad's farm and selling to some local shops and a farm stand, but I wasn't interested in money or like joining the world in that way again. I just wanted to figure out what path there was for me, because all I cared about and care about is my daughter. You know,
what if your daughter were to get evaluated and she were to pass?
She wouldn't pass, but
that's your assessment.
But
I'm just saying. So, like, let's avoid absolutes. Always and never.
So, what I need what I would need is for her to be evaluated for what I'm alleging, what I believe has happened. So, there's brain scans that I would be perfectly happy to say, you have this brain scan, and that will those brain scans can determine whether there was early trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Because
what if she passes?
She won't pass, but if she did, then I would have to start to reconsider, right? Because I know what I know, and I've shown what I know in the book, but again, I think what if she passes is an unfair question. Like,
I asked the question.
Let's just do that.
I agree, but you can't compel somebody to do that, right? You would have to talk to an entity or organization that has the authority to at least approach her with that. She'd be an adult at this point, right? So you're not going to...
Well, not yet.
Close,
yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to handcuff somebody and probably put them into that sensor, is what I'm saying. And I ask it not to be unfair. I am asking it because I'm gauging your belief. Mm-hmm. And why you believe what you believe from a variety of different angles. I'm not trying to ask you unfair questions. I'm just curious about...
No, and I appreciate the questions. Yeah. And I think the difficult questions are necessary. But you also haven't read my book. So
well, if I started today, what year is it? I could probably finish this fucker in 2026. It's okay. Talk me through the book. Did you do this chronologically? How did you lay this thing out?
I did. There's 7 parts. The first part is...
Total word count again was?
About around 300,000.
I'm going to say it again. You're out of your fucking mind.
So
Average book on the shelf, 65,000 words, people.
and I cut out a couple hundred pages. Because I'm trying to be as thorough, because I understand...
Because shipping is calculated by weight. I totally get it.
Because I understand the types of questions that I'm getting, right? I understand the skepticism. I understand the...
I'm skeptical of everything.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. It has nothing to do directly with you. I'm skeptical of just about everything.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but I'm saying, like, I was aware of that when I wrote the book.
Okay.
And I believe that when you go through the book, it's impossible. Like, you don't have to believe that I'm right about the ritual abuse and mind control. But I think that it would be impossible to say that I was the problem and that my daughter shouldn't have been evaluated when I asked for her to be evaluated.
Have you, in any of this time, found paths that have gotten you more headway? Like, do you have any hope that you may be able to get this evaluation at some point in time? Have there been organizations or people or entities that have been able to help you in any way?
No, not really. I mean, so the last part of the book, I sent new emails out to the U.S. Secretary of State, the Dutch Central Authority, the Polish, all of these places again, and they're just like, yeah, we can't help you.
So what's your plan moving forward?
My plan moving forward is to get people to read the book,
Okay.
to try to educate people on this sort of thing, which is just familial human trafficking and severe child abuse, right? That nobody wants to think about. But regardless of like the skepticism about my story, like there's no doubt that this is happening in our world, right? And it's just the epitome of evil, and it's happening, and there's proof that it's happening. There's the survivors are now speaking out, and there's hundreds of books written on the topic and hundreds of testimonies, and
yeah, human beings are fucking horrible.
Yes, they
to
are.
each other. Some of the things that we're willing to do to our fellow man and woman is just insane. The 7 sections, what are they? How'd you decide to lay this thing out? First, obviously, you said I'm going to write a 500,000-page book, and you worked yourself backwards.
No, so the first part is just my early life from birth until after college, and
Context on how you view the world.
Some of that, and some of it is me being vulnerable. Some of it's me talking about things that I would never talk about unless I'm trying to show that I don't care about myself, and I just want to be honest, and just whatever the truth is about me doesn't bother me at all. Like my concern is entirely about something else other than me. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to have my brain dissected to get to the bottom of this. You know, I'm willing to go to the electric chair if you just evaluate my daughter according to.
Why would you go to the electric chair?
Well, I'm just trying to say that it's not about me.
Okay.
Right? Like it's not. I'm not. Who I care about is not myself. Right? My duty is as a father. So I'm just trying to be vulnerable. I talk about things that I would never have talked about, you know, unless my agenda is something other than promoting myself.
Okay.
So then I get into part 2, and that's, you know, getting out of college, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, meeting my wife, my first wife, and meeting her family and all of that. And that leads up to the end of August 2010, which is when we had her visa application sent in. Everything was great. And then I left for 3 months to go to the United States to prepare for our move, sent them to Poland. And so that's the end of part 2. Then part 3 is all of the communication for those 3 months that my first wife and I had. And it's all they're like love letters, like unusual love letters. Like, I love you, you're my world, can't wait till we're back together, every single day for those 3 months. Part 4 is the minute I walk into our apartment, I hate you and I've always hated you. So I think that is one of the strongest points of my argument. It's like you have those 3 months of unbelievable love letters, and then I walk in and I hate you, I've always hated you. And again, there's proof that I'm trying to get help within a couple days and telling people she said she's leaving. She has her passport. I'm terrified. So something happened in Poland. Like, I wasn't the problem. That's what part 3 and 4 show. Then part 4 is the last 18 days, every day.
Part 5, you mean?
No, part 4 is.
Okay.
Part 4 is that 18 days of me trying to convince her to get help, me reaching out to other people, and just my experience during that. Part 5 is from when my daughter was abducted until when I decided to go to prison, which part 5 is crazy. Like, I'm dealing with my daughter being abducted and being taken back to what my wife called a cult, and figuring out what that means and what that is, because I had never heard of such a thing. I didn't know what that was, and reaching out to my family, trying to get help, and all that for those 4 months. Then, so that's part 5. Part 6 is my 50 months that I spent incarcerated in Poland, and the event with my father-in-law that led to those 50 months. Part 7 is my release from Poland, and where I went from there, my further attempts to get help, meeting my second wife, and after I had decided to become a monk, right, I was
like a legit monk.
That's what, yeah. I was like, I'm just gonna seek God and pray and try to because I do believe it's a spiritual war. There's.
What about the kung fu? Are you going to do that?
I have been thinking about doing jujitsu, but I haven't started yet.
You should.
I know.
But I was going down the monk pipeline from all the TV shows that I've seen, which of course are documentaries and 100% true. They do kung fu.
There's the battle between good and evil. It is in the physical world, but it's also in the spiritual world, and that's.
I would have to agree. I'm not even a spiritual person, but I tend to agree.
So just trying to figure out what that means, right? And I was never a spiritual person either. Like I was a Sam Harris atheist until I actually saw what evil is, and then when I saw what evil was, then I started to understand what good is. So as soon as I decided to become a monk and had convinced everyone that I'm never going to marry again, then my second wife walks into my life, and I told her the story right away because people say, what were you doing in Poland? Why?
Just hanging out, non-consensually.
Yeah. Why don't you have contact with your daughter? And it's just I just tell the story to everyone pretty much, and I told her, and she was just like, what do we need to do? What are you doing? And we just started hanging out, and I tested it because I still didn't want her. I wrote her breakup letters, and if I don't love my first wife, then I can never love you. Looking at it philosophically, if I would give up on her, then how could you believe I wouldn't give up on you? Of course I would.
Have you been able to separate the two now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Be a very tough role for your current wife if she was always in the same equation with another multiplier.
She has no doubts where I'm at, okay. And neither do I. And it's kind of straightened me out as to what I believe marriage is, what I believe we're doing here. It's not the fairy tale, I'm going to be with you forever and ever type of thing. It's we're here to do a job, and we support each other. We love each other. You're my partner, and we love you. So I still love my first wife, but it's not in the wife sense. It's just in the we have a child together, mm-hmm. and I believe that you're in a cult like you said you were. So I'm going to fight for you, but also I believe my second wife was put in my life. I don't think things are random. We met, and she has joined up with me to continue fighting for them and to figure out what else we're supposed to do.
Did you ever file for divorce?
So my first wife did, and I fought it 3 times, and but I was just fighting it on the basis of, well, she's not making decisions for herself, and we need to evaluate our child, right? But I had no chance, and the Polish lawyer that we hired, my dad and I hired, didn't fight to reopen the case, didn't fight to evaluate my child. All he was fighting for was, is Ian a danger to his daughter? And I didn't want to jump through those hoops and hope to get supervised visitation. It was I'm going to stop lying, because I had to lie to get out of Poland. So I'm going to stop lying, and I'm just going to just speak the truth with every sentence as best I can, and believe that that's going to work. And I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know what road is in front of me. But the releasing my book and having the whole story in one place is a huge step. Being here on your podcast is a huge step. Doors are opening, and I understand that my story is you could say it's unbelievable. Like it's not, it's unbelievable for me too. It's just like, it's what landed on my plate, and it's not what I wanted. It's not what I hoped for. I won the lottery when I married my first wife.
Is that what we're calling it now?
No, the bad lottery.
Okay.
But I don't regret it. I don't regret what I've gone through. I don't regret marrying her, having our daughter, loving her. Mm-hmm. I don't regret prison. I don't regret my decisions, because every step of the way I've just done what my heart has told me to do. You know, even that bad decision that sent me to prison, because I contemplated it and meditated on it for 4 months, and just what does a dad do in this situation? And that was the best thing that I came up with. And I still don't, now I would make better decisions, but what I knew, that was a good decision at the time for me. And I'm at peace with it. I know what I did and why I did it, and I know what I didn't do. Mm-hmm. And I think to wait or to be afraid of what the consequences are would be worse. I wasn't worried about whatever happened to me. I was just hoping that whatever happens to me, just please also do a child abuse investigation.
I hope one day that you are able to get that done. I don't know when she hits 18. Obviously in the U.S. she would be considered an adult. I don't know how that works in Poland, whether she would have to consent to something like that happening or not. I don't know anything about that, but
mm-hmm.
Yeah, the outcome of which indeterminate, but I hope that at least for you, you would maybe be able to get that step done, so you could either take a step forward or put it down.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever would suit you best in that.
Yeah, and I mean, for sure, if they said we will do the brain scan that you are requesting in a facility that you say is okay with,
Do they have those facilities in Poland?
No, I wouldn't have it done in Poland, because I don't.
Where would you want to have it done?
Maybe Germany.
Okay. I was going to say find a neutral third location. Yeah. You'd probably have better odds.
Germany or the United States, ideally, because I know people in the United States.
Yeah, she doesn't, though.
Right.
And I would say find a neutral location closer to where she lives would probably be your best of luck.
Mm-hmm. And I've recently I've sent my book to the Polish equivalent of the FBI.
What'd they say?
Well, they haven't responded, but when I was in prison, they told me they don't believe in ritual abuse.
Huh.
The Polish court system, same thing. They told me they didn't know what I was talking about when I alleged ritual abuse.
Interesting.
I sent it to the Polish National Police recently. I sent it to the CIA in D.C. recently, because I know the CIA knows what ritual abuse is. MK Ultra is out. There's documents to prove, and that's MK Ultra is just government research based on what has been happening in these cult families for millennia, basically.
Did you hear anything back from the agency?
Not yet.
That you know of. I feel like you've gotten yourself onto some pretty cool lists, like watch lists, mm-hmm. maybe crazy people lists. It's hard to say.
Yep. Well, again, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Because I'm just Ian doing the best I can.
Did you self-publish or find a publisher?
Self-published.
How was that process?
So, my wife did a lot of the work. Like she was my editor. She worked with Amazon to format it, and I did take a book crafting course.
Okay.
A woman.
Dude, the internet is such an amazing tool.
Yeah. Well, it was a friend who deals with this type of trauma, and she reached out to me and said, take my course. And so I took it from January to May of this year, and it really just helped with a lot of the little details that I would have had no idea about.
Awesome. And how's it going? When did you publish?
May 8th.
Okay. How's it going?
It's going well.
Okay.
I think I've been on 3 podcasts prior to this one.
Yep.
Got a couple more down the line, and I'm just gonna keep pressing, keep trying.
Yeah.
Keep speaking out, keep getting people to to read the story, to become more educated about this sort of child abuse, because it's not only my daughter. Like, this is happening in your neighborhood.
Michael, you haven't said shit, and he never doesn't say anything. What are your thoughts? Don't lie to me.
This is a wild story. I wasn't expecting this.
I'll send you a book too.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's kind of insane. Like, I didn't think that's where this was going. Not in a bad way or anything, but yeah, it's a wild story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the best thing that we can do, and I said this before, I always believe people when they tell me what they're thinking. And I believe people when they tell me what they believe. It's not for me to make up people's minds. I think the best thing that we can do is let the listeners do exactly that. Listen to you and your story, and they get to make up their minds for themselves. There are certainly some portions of it that are, they stretch belief. And I don't mean that about, because
I understand that.
I don't believe
that's why the book's 600 pages. Because I have to explain it.
600 pages. I'm going to say this is like half spaced.
And
this isn't double spaced. If you double space this, this would be like the Encyclopedia Britannica, which that motherfucker does not know what we're talking about when I say that. But you do, because you're my age. Can you believe we used to buy encyclopedias, volumes, every year?
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
Can you imagine the amount of encyclopedias in landfills?
Lots and lots.
Yeah, if you double space this would be 3.
Well, plus it's a 7x10. You know, it's a big book, and I know, but I had to be thorough, and
it information is information. I think the best thing you can do is provide people with information and stop. And I'm saying this not to you, just like writ large. People want to give you information and then nudge you in the direction that they want you to go with it. I'm more of a fan of let's give you information and you do with it whatever you want to do with it. It's not for me to say.
Yep.
So,
and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying believe me. I'm saying, take the next few years to read my book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think you can do better. I think volume 2 could be 400,000.
Hopefully, I just write an afterword where my daughter's free. That's what I'm hoping for. But
let's say your daughter and your wife decide to leave, your first wife, and she says to you, "I want you back. I'll only leave, but if I can have you back." What do you do?
It's not possible.
Okay, good answer. Good answer.
We can have dinner. We can be friends. We can raise our daughter together. And
what in the fuck is wrong with you?
But
you are not having dinners.
I'm married.
You are not being friends.
Well, not without my wife.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not without my
Or
wife.
how about like at all?
No, because I'm not tempted at all.
No, I just mean because she might be a horrible version of a human being for what she put you through.
Yeah, but now I'm older and a little bit wiser, and
that just means your revenge can be that much sweeter. You have so many more techniques.
But I don't have any desire for revenge.
What? It's the step before forgiveness.
No, I already cycled through that. Right, I was very angry when she took our daughter.
Yeah,
and in order to get over that, I had to wrap my head around what this kind of trauma can do to a person.
Yeah,
right.
That can scramble your eggs for sure.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, we've been at this for a couple hours at this point. What do you want to leave people with?
I would just really ask that people educate themselves on this subject, realize that the truth is stranger than fiction, and that evil does hide amongst us in plain sight, and that I was a person who was going to be a lawyer and help people. And then I just unwittingly married somebody and got involved, and this became my story. So again, like I don't. This story is crazy, right? And it's not the story that I dreamt of or desired, but it's the story that fell on my lap, and I'm telling it for my first wife and our daughter. To be a voice for them, and also to to be an advocate for other people who are in similar situations. Don't believe me. I wouldn't believe me either, but I would read the book, and I think that's all I can hope for.
Are you on social media at all? Let's say people read the book and they have questions. Is there any ability for people to reach out to you? Do you play in any of those absolutely catastrophic and just socially decreasing ecosystems?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
A little bit. I also have a Twitter account with
What are the usernames
3 followers
associated with them?
So Ian Bryson's on Facebook, or
Okay.
I Love You Like One.
Okay.
My website is iloveyoulikeone.com.
And that's where they can get the book?
They can order it through there or directly from Amazon.
Oh, sweet.
And so the paperback's available, the Kindle's available, and right now I'm offering a PDF for $1 because I don't want to prevent anyone from getting it if money is the issue.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing it to get the word out and to get my daughter out of there.
What is your Instagram username?
I Love You Like One.
And if people wanted to reach out to you over any of those platforms, which would be the one you're most likely to see?
Well, any of them, but I think directly through my website is the best way.
Is there a contact button?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. And that's iloveyoulikeone.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ian, have you considered at all that you might be crazy?
You have to consider it or else you are crazy.
All right. I think about it every day. I wonder every day whether or not I'm crazy. I just want to make sure.
Sane people do. Sane people do.
What do you want to close it out with? I'll give you the last words, other than to say thank you for making the travel out here and reaching out in the first place. I'm glad we were able to sit down and have this conversation.
I'm thankful for that too. I just, when you responded to my query about your podcast, I was just like, wow, I'm buying a ticket right now. This is such an opportunity. And I'm very thankful to you, and I'm thankful even, for your skepticism, for your difficult questions.
Yeah, and I'm skeptical of everything.
I'm not judging that at all. I appreciate it. The world is skeptical. My parents are skeptical still. Right now I have my wife and my mother-in-law and my mother-in-law's boyfriend and my best friend that I've known since 15. Those are the people that have stood by me this entire time.
Yeah.
So I would just say, don't read the book or investigate this topic because I tell you to, or for me, but look at it like, from the standpoint of Patty Hearst, right? Like if people didn't understand complex trauma, then Patty Hearst would have been put in prison for being guilty of her crimes or allowed to continue on with her abductors. And so my first wife and my daughter are in a similar situation, and I think they deserve to be heard. Even though if you ask them, they would say that they're fine and that they don't want help. I think that my thorough story, which includes a lot of original documentation and emails, which really only in our generation has been made possible,
Yeah.
right? Like I have daily emails and daily me trying to reach out for help. So I think that, the truth is hard to knock down. The truth is hard to come up against. And what I've tried to do is just lay it out in all of its ugliness and all of its me telling not every story about myself, because it would be double that size, but enough so that people realize that this isn't about me. This is about something that I love more than me.
That's a good ending spot. Let's give people the portal to get the information and let them do with it what they will. I think it's the safest thing we can do.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.